Okay, so this video is going to go into using a little bit of logic and if statements in the Excel. I know this could be a little confusing and it's hard to get right on the first time, but I'll try and go through it slowly, and I'll probably make some mistakes myself along the way. We'll work through them, and we'll get there to calculate the number of shares that the convertible note should be issued per the correct conversion method. So let's get started on that. What we're going to do is we're going to go in here, right here where it says series seed shares, and we're just going to start with an if statement. So first if statement is if the valuation cap is greater than 0, because if there's no valuation cap, then we'll know the number of shares to focus on immediately. And then if the valuation cap is less than pre-money valuation. So let's go in there and make sure we click on valuation cap, less than, because if the valuation cap is greater than the pre-money valuation, then we'll just use the pre-money valuation. So the value if true. So that's another if statement. If over here the pre-money method equals 1, which in this case it does not, but that's okay, then we'll go down here and use this cell right here, which is the shares per method cell. Okay, and then we'll go into the value of false. So the value of, if C24 does not equal 1, if C24 equals 0, then that'll be false. So we'll then add another if statement. That if statement will be referencing this one. If C25 equals 1, then we'll go down and reference the appropriate shares per method for the percentage ownership. See how that's connected? Percentage ownership equals 1. We'll use this one. Okay, and if that's not true, then we'll hit if again, and we'll say if this one equals 1. Then we'll come down here and reference this cell, F44. And if that is false, then we want to go over here and use this bottom cell right here. And then we'll want to close that up a couple of times and begin to try and get this correct, which it's not easy. Let's just accept that correction and see. So it says false. So our problem is that we need to make sure that we have an answer for if some of these other ones are true. So let's see if we can figure that out. So it looks, I think what we got to do is reference that cell B46 here. And I'm just going to type it in to make it easy. And maybe put a comma before it, so it's not calculated as the value if true. It's calculated as the value if false. And I think we need to do the same thing right here. So yeah, there we go. We calculated that 43,489, and the reason it is using 43,489 is because the valuation cap is greater than this 4 million. So let's see, if we change this valuation cap to say 3 million, see if we can get this to work now. So it doesn't seem as though that's correct. If G15, okay, so this is the way it seems here. Made a mistake and I put is less than 0 up here in the top. It doesn't need to be less than 0. It needs to be less than the pre-money valuation. And so now it's referencing the correct cell, 45,647, 45,647, and we have a 1 here. So let's test this out for all three of them. Put a 0 here, put a 1 here. 45,811, 45,81171. And now lastly, let's do this, 45,679, 45,679. And then if we don't specify a method of conversion, it should just reference this number down here, which is exactly what it's doing. So as you can see, the valuation cap calculations come into play whenever you have a valuation cap. Let's put it at 0 and say we don't have a valuation cap, and yeah, it should stay the same, referencing this number here. So this is how the valuation cap can affect you, whether or not it's greater or lower than the valuation of the next round, and then the different methods of conversion, how they affect the shares. Now, the difference between most of these share counts is minimal because we have only have $100,000 being invested. It doesn't affect that share count very greatly. But if this number was higher, then it would have a greater effect, and the conversion would have a greater effect. Let's make it 1 million. So 456,000 shares, and at this point, referenced down here. But let's say we have a 1 here, so we're using the pre-money method. Then, with no valuation cap, that is, let's put a valuation cap of 6 million here. And then let's go over here and change the pre-money valuation to 7. So now we're using this cap, and we're referencing these shares here. And we'll go in here, and so we see that with this method, we're issued 240,000 shares if we're an investor. With this method, we're issued 255,000 shares if we're an investor. So that's a significant change in ownership. Whereas with the final method, we're issued 242,000 shares. So not much difference than the pre-money method. This is why the method of conversion should be decided up front so that you can plan for it, and you should know how they all work. So if you get caught in a negotiation over them, you don't concede the worst one right off the bat.